call the meeting to order and ask if there's a disclosure of interest. As there is none, I'd like to have a resolution moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as amended with the addition of L under reports of managers, officers, reports of municipal officers, which is the LRMC Fire Services meeting attendance. So it would be a resolution for the adoption of the agenda as amended. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have a resolution accepting the minutes of the council meeting held on February the 13th. Were there any errors or omissions? As there were none, again, we have a resolution that's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Was there any discussion on any of those minutes? Page 11 to 24. As there is none, we have reports of Committee of Adjustment. First is application 1B0524. It's just for our information. And then we have 1B0624. It's on behalf of Canyon Contracting. Did you want your comments today?
No, I believe you're commenting at the meeting on the 12th.
Next meeting, okay. And then we have an application 1B0724 on behalf of Richard Latham. And that also will come back to us for comment on March the 12th. The next item we have is GFL 26 Haniak zoning bylaw. We have a resolution that's been moved and seconded. This resolution is before us as was ordered by the Ontario Land Tribunal. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Then we have policy 060201, which is a specialist studies and peer review policy. This report is in front of us for discussion only, page 94 to 101. Open the floor to discussion. Councillor Viss?
Yes, just clarification. When we do the peer review, is it the municipality that hires an engineer or a firm to do the peer review? Or is it the developer that hires the person?
It would be the municipality that chooses who does the peer review.
Thank you, because I think that's very important, because his loyalty would be to whoever hires them, and then we bill them what our cost. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions?
I just had
Albert?
on number 13 there, the provision of where peer reviews and they can be rejected too as well. They don't have to. Is that what that means?
I believe that means, and Wayne can correct me if I'm wrong, that if a study comes in and we review it and it just doesn't look like it's meeting any of the requirements, that we can reject that and ask for a new study.
Yep.
That's it? Okay. Next item, we have a zoning bylaw 01-2019, and this is in regards to official housekeeping amendments to the zoning bylaw 2019. And I will pass it to the planning department.
So the housekeeping amendments that are listed in this report are items that have come up in the last few years where folks will call us asking for certain things, and then we'll realize in the research end of it that the bylaw either doesn't define something properly, or things just aren't making as much sense as they maybe were intended to. So the first one is with respect to adding a definition for a bunkhouse to the zoning bylaw. So what we realized was in the commercial area right now, we allow a secondary dwelling as an accessory use to a commercial use, either above or behind. But that could be to anyone. A bunkhouse would allow multiple people potentially to stay in separate rooms. But they have to be employees of the business that they're attached to. That would just be something that we would add to the commercial zones. But it gives a definition for something maybe more appropriate for the use that's being that's happening in those areas. The second one is for storage, and it did come before council previous to this term. Right now, our zoning bylaw identifies storage as a main use. It's just listed under certain zones as a main use. So inside or outside storage could be on a property by itself. The purpose of the housekeeping amendment is to maybe add a definition that indicates that storage is more of an accessory to a main use rather than a main use. And we can add different versions of that definition. Perhaps there's an agricultural storage, which could be a standalone use, or a commercial storage, which could be a standalone use. But storage in the as defined in the zoning bylaw now is the keeping of goods, merchandise, vehicles, etc. Maybe would be more of an accessory use, which would clean up some of the,
On the, I picked up on the motor vehicle and do we not have a bylaw in place? You only allow that up to 3 vehicles unlicensed in a yard, isn't that? Don't we have a bylaw in that effect?
It
No,
was
that's-
two.
Thinking so under property standards, maybe property standards.
I think there's something like, I remember. 3
And Sarah,
vehicles or so.
yeah.
It's my understanding that you can have only 2 uninsured vehicles on your property.
okay. I know Larry has gone to
Yes.
some properties, but again, we're complaint based. This just adds, so I think the reason that we originally brought this up was the property on the Agriplex is storing RVs just outside. And that's where we kind of realized that our storage definition doesn't prevent that. So, and this won't, in fixing this, it won't prevent existing uses, but it'll allow us to prevent it moving forward. The third one, so we currently only define a recycling facility in our zoning bylaw, but then don't permit it under any zone. So what we've done here is we've taken a recycling facility and broke it down into 3 separate definitions that match the uses as they exist now in certain zones. So we would have a recycling depot, which only would collect recycled material, and this would be in the light industrial and disposal industrial zone. A sorting facility would collect and sort waste materials, which is allowed in the light industrial and heavy industrial zone. And then a processing facility, which collects, sorts, and uses chemical or mechanical means to process the recyclables. This would be permitted only in the heavy industrial zone. So we're gonna hopefully add that in. Number 4, hopefully isn't the most confusing, but might be. The issue that we have right now is that when we permit accessory or secondary dwellings, there is a minimum square footage in each zone. And so the minimum square footage has to be met for the accessory dwelling as well, because we don't define differently, but we also cap an accessory dwelling at 1,130 square feet. So oftentimes people are restricted in that they have to be between 800 square feet and 1,130 square feet. So this is proposing to eliminate the minimum square footage of an accessory dwelling only. This serves 2 purposes. One, it'll make people, it'll make this accessory dwelling a lot more accessible to folks where the 40% of the square footage of their home is likely not within that current definition. But also this, in theory, would allow tiny homes within the municipality without them being a primary use on the property. And then the third one, very simple, food trucks right now are only permitted in the institutional zone. And we feel that they should be added to commercial zones, open space zones, they match the uses that take place in those zones. And just something that we wanted to add to make things easier.
I had some questions in regards to number 1. This is not going to be allowed in industrial areas, only commercial?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and then another question I had in regards to number 4, and you had mentioned it, this means that tiny homes would be allowed in as an accessory building on a person's lot,
Correct.
but not on a lot that doesn't have a residential
That's
home
correct.
already.
It's only applicable for an accessory or secondary dwelling. It's not a main use.
So it could be as a garden suite, as they say nowadays, is what it's called. Okay, so the minimum regulations or size is not going to be restricted to certain 800.
No, it'll only be restricted by the building code.
Okay, and the building code would then, of course, the building inspector would ensure that that building falls under the building code.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the only thing I had on number 5 is food trucks, and I can see them being in commercial areas, but, and even open spaces if you have a fair or something. Do we have a restriction when it comes to, we used to, and I'm not sure if it's still in our policy, that they would have to pay a certain fee to stand in that place? Because we had some concerns in Quebec-a a few years ago when they had the fair, that there were food trucks moving in for the 3, 4, 5 days, and they were not paying anything to either the landowner or to the municipality.
Mhm.
And there, while we had other institutions on that's in the same village, Quebec-a, that were selling food, were paying property tax. And their concern was now we have all these people move in with these food trucks and they're not paying any levy, which kind of hurts us because they're taking business away from, that was their concern from them. So is this going to mean that a food truck could move into a commercial business somewhere and not pay anything, any fee to the township or whatever in regards to selling food? What I'm trying to say is someone could move into the industrial area here next door and have a food truck while we have a couple restaurants in the area that pay municipal tax, and these food trucks wouldn't be paying anything. And I think we had passed something at that time. I couldn't remember what it was, but I know we had that at the Quebec village of Quebec-a.
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, because that would be my own concern, only concern because of any business in our municipality that sells food
Mhm.
is paying property tax or business tax as well. And they're,
If they're parked on private property, I'm not sure how we would charge a levy.
mhm.
But I'm not sure what you would have passed in.
We'd have to look back, but that's my only concern with this. I'm not saying I don't agree with it.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering the reaction we're going to have from, restaurants in the area that are going to maybe lose business because someone puts in a food truck and starts selling hot dogs at $1.50 a hot dog. That's the only thing I have. Yes, no.
But the issue came, the person across the road there had a fast food outlet, and they said, wait a minute, we're allowing these people in for nothing and paying taxes year round, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's all I remember.
Yeah, we can look into it, each one of these, either as a whole or separately, have to come back through a public meeting, so we can see if we can figure out.
I knew there was something passed. You'd have to look back. I don't know what it was, that they were required to pay something to the landowner.
Okay.
So if the food truck is on ABC's property, they have to pay a certain fee for every month or whatever that food truck is there to, you're kind of saying that they're paying their food property tax through the owner of the property, like not to us, but the property guy is getting
Okay,
a break
how would
on his
we-
property. So
Yeah, I'm
But
not
I-
sure how we,
no, I can't
mandate
remember.
that.
That was a few years ago. We haven't had a fair in Quebec for, I don't know, 3, 4 years. But I do know, and I can anticipate that concern if you would have a food truck turn up here in our property.
Yeah.
And then Santarelli's down the road is saying, wait a minute, you guys used to come here for your bowl of soup. Now you're buying your hot dog here. And that person's not paying property tax.
right,
So, yes, Alan, Councillor Viz?
Yes, and I think the way you can look at it in the city, I think they have to have a permit to have vehicles to sell
So maybe
products.
that
And
was
so
it.
we could go, if you can't do anything, but we certainly could put a license fee in
Permit.
place. So then it doesn't matter where they park, anytime that sells any of that. You may want to check with the city what they have in place, but that way it would get around. Because like you said, and you're very true, if you sit on private property, how are you going to tell them? But we could have a license structure fee in place for you to sell in in our municipality like the city does, so.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
John?
and I'd just like to add there is a fire safety risk with these mobile cooking units. And like in the city, part of that permit is an inspection to make sure that the fire stuff is up to snuff inside of and I suppose the health unit check could be in there too.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would encourage that because they do pose a risk from a fire standpoint.
Okay, and also this bunkhouse would also have to be approved, of course, by the building inspector and.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, I can see that.
So just before
Hmm.
we move on, if I am bringing these back to public meeting, are there any that council feels might be contentious? Basically, if we get an appeal and I put all of these through on the same bylaw, then all of them are held up. So if council feels that any of them might be contentious and be appealed, they should be done separate
I'd
through
like
a
to see
separate
them done.
bylaw.
I'd like to see them done separately, please.
All of them done separately?
Yeah, just do them all separately.
Thank you.
Just one comment on you mentioned agriculture also. Can you somehow wording in that anything related to the use in agriculture is allowed as a storage? Because for instance, I know at our farm, we have a whole lot of different type of equipment. You use spring, fall, summer, all the equipment, it's all stored there. So if you went driving a farmyard, you say, well, what's all this junk? Well, it's not junk. There's discs, there's cultivators, there's mowers, there's all, you see, it's not always all stored inside either because we just don't have the room for that. So I don't know, I know where you go with that, but you may want to think about that because you can't deny people having the equipment that they need year round, you see,
Right.
okay?
Yep.
So I don't know how to do it, Gary, but anyway, think of that, okay?
Any other questions? No? So this will be coming back to us again then. Okay, thank you. The next, excuse me, the next one is Cooper Road, L1 subdivision. Excuse me. They had the results of the hydrogeological study, and the study has been, we have been, can have it if we want the 100 and some pages, or it's on our website. Councilor Viss?
Yes, I like to have a hard copy. I already got a couple emails on it and I have no idea. So at least I don't know whether I have any answers to it or not, but anyway, at least I can look through them when somebody refers some stuff to me in emails, I can have a look at it. So I didn't think it was going to be very important to have, but I didn't realize people were jumping all over this thing. So it would just, I think it'd just be helpful to have it at home and
Okay. No problem? Okay. The next one is policy 02-1801, disconnecting from work policy. I'm not quite sure where this come from, but this means that you don't have to work if you don't want to work. Basically. Anyway, we have a resolution that's been moved and seconded. So it's open for discussion. Yes, Councilor Viss.
yeah, just a couple of clarification when it says the purpose of it, this policy applies to all municipal, all of our Pawnee employees. That means also the council meetings and so on. You can deny having to come to these meetings. Is that what it's telling me here? I'm just trying. Well, the employees are here in the evenings, so that's my point. You see, are they?
Yes.
Because outside of normal hours of work. Now, in your job description, does it state you have to have evening meetings? We used to have
Yeah.
2 and we're down to 1 now, so
That is in the
that is in the agreement, okay?
the union, or I should say the non-union agreement. And if you look on page 109, there's a discussion about working hours.
Yes,
And working hours can be variable from person to person, and some persons' types of jobs, they have more work that is outside of normal hours. And So this does not mean that everybody's 9 to 5 and that's it.
Mhm.
Where this came about was from the provincial government where the bar was moving in favor of employers in some places where, you know, people would be expected to, you know, complete the report on Sunday. You know, that type of thing.
It started it all right here.
Yeah, they're coming after employees 24/7.
So undoubtedly, this is where it all started. So people were being contacted after work and stuff like that and expected to answer their phones and you know, you have to put a stop on it. It's just how it is. Like unless you're on call or, you know, call for emergencies, other than that, people have their lives.
Yes.
But there's nothing preventing an employee from taking on jobs outside of normal working hours on their own.
So what this basically says is if someone gets a hold of you on Saturday afternoon to ask you a question that could be asked on Monday from 9 to 5, you can just disregard the call or not respond, whatever. Because you have your life, you have your weekend with your families, yes.
Unless you have some kind of understanding with your employer where, you know, we need you to be able to do this kind of stuff. And, you know, that it have to be documented and when it's in like an agreement between an employer and an employee, then the employee be saying, yeah, you know, I can, you know, do that type of thing. But we have to put in the agreement and the employee, you'd be saying, I want some compensation for those types of things. Then, you know, it's a,
Mhm.
you can negotiate if the idea is you will be, you know, meeting certain deadlines and everything and working extra hours and so forth. Well, you know, you have to negotiate how that's all going to work. Generally with most employees, they are the people that, yeah, you got your 35 or 40 hours a week and that's what it is.
Mhm. Counselor Viss?
Yeah, just one other thing. It says employees may need to be occasionally be contacted outside the normal work hours for an emergency or unforeseeable circumstances. Who determines if it's an emergency or unforeseen circumstance? And then you get into an argument there. You see what I'm saying on page ability to disconnect on page 110, the second paragraph. Yeah, I know what you're trying to get at, but you see, we do advertise emergency telephone numbers, and what I may consider an emergency, you may not. So where do we get into that argument? I'm saying, hey, wait a minute. I read through that and I'm confused with this, the whole situation here. I really don't know how to tie it all together. It may be just me. I just find it confusing, and so,
It's not our policy, though. It's the government's policy.
and that's probably why it's confusing.
It's the provincial government's policy. Yes, Wayne?
Well, the one that the guide you have is on page 107, emergency, a situation or impending situation that requires timely or immediate attentions and or action. That's what you got. Now, if there's a dispute between the employer and the employee about what that is, this can go up the line to get a decision, you know, it's.
Well,
It could end up that there's a, you know, call from an outside party to say this, whether this is right or not, you know, the Ministry of Labor or whatever, but
Right.
I don't expect that to be arising. We don't have this kind of issue in our workplace right now where people, at least I'm not that I'm aware of, that people think that they are required to work outside of normal hours excessively.
I would say that if I get a phone call from the fire chief that says, this is an emergency, et cetera, that's an emergency. And I don't care if it comes at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But if someone calls me on Saturday afternoon because trying to think of something that probably has happened in the past, and I may just look at the name and say, no, they call me every Saturday at 6 o'clock and I'm just not going to answer the phone. I'm being honest. But I might pick it up and they say, well, this, and this. And I say, well, you know, we'll get an answer for you Monday. But I don't have to pick up that phone because that's not an emergency. And I know it's not an emergency because I get the same phone call on the same subject every weekend. So I think you have to use your better judgment as to who's phoning you. Yes,
Okay, just referring to what you thought of what you could think of, and I'll use a prime example, which has happened, is the halls. That sometimes the booking isn't correct or something isn't right, or the information hasn't gone. It's happened over time, and somebody's standing at the door and they call you because they don't know who to call. Well, that's an emergency.
That's right.
Somebody's there, and I should be entitled to call any of the
Right.
staff who is in front. So, yeah, so you get to that point, you see what I'm trying to get at? It's iffy, but it's anyway.
but I don't think anyone
policy.
would contest and say that that's an emergency. John?
Yeah, that, in that situation, I think what the.
Or, sorry, in that situation, I don't know if it'd be clarified as an emergency or not, but I guess the expectation be you would follow the proper steps. So you would contact Chris or the hall attendant or something like that. You wouldn't contact Laura or Amy or Christina to deal with something like that. Or me, but yeah, so that's the.
Chris?
Yes, just to clarify to Councillor Viss's point, they sign a contract that says they're gonna be there that day. There is contact information on the piece of paper provided to them. They shouldn't be calling a counselor or another member of staff without that number. So the caretaker numbers are there and my number is there. And at that point in time, I do check the bookings as to what's going on. If there is a screw up, it's part of my job description to
Mhm.
respond.
Mhm.
It's not an emergency. I'm committed to working after hours. It's part of my contract, as Wayne alluded to. And my contract's very defined as to what I have to do.
Okay, but it's a provincial contract, it's a provincial policy or something that's, yeah, disconnecting from work policy. That has been, the provincial government has amended the Employment Standards Act. And that's what we have to do, so. It does clarify things for people. There are some people, unfortunately, that we are fortunate, I think, in our municipality that we do not have that as being prevalent, but there are some places where a manager may call up and say, you know, Lucy, I need that contract for Monday at 10. Why didn't you tell me that at Friday at 9 in the morning? I could have done it on Friday, but they expect you to come in, do that work at no extra expense on their behalf. And I don't think, I agree that that's not the way it should be. Unless there's an emergency and, you know, the Queen of England wants something done for 10 in the morning on Monday, I will certainly come in to work and do that, but. Sorry, King. Yes,
So what's the fallout when these things aren't followed? What's the? You know? These are all our policies, but what happens when these aren't followed?
yes, go ahead.
On page 111, questions and concerns talks about what happens if there's issues with the policy, and employees are supposed to report the concerns to their supervisors and get them resolved. If the supervisor, they have some issue, not happy with how that turned out, they can come to me and then it goes up to council, and
Closed session.
so it's, yeah, there's avenues to get things sorted out.
Okay, so again, we have the resolution. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item is a resolution in regards to contribution to rural 60+. I did have a question on this because the contribution is in kind, but it's not mentioned as such in the resolution. Does that matter?
I don't think so, because it's defined in our bylaw that the contribution can be in kind or cash or anything, you know, there's some of it's not, you know, some of the things listed on here, you don't really call tax relief contribution in kind.
That's
It's-
right.
It's a financial element, so.
But the application form does say in kind or financially, so you're right. Either one, yes. Yes, Councillor Viss?
Yeah, just for clarification, that the legislation senior active living center allows us to do that at least 20% of their cost. Do we ever get a financial statement to see where are we at? Are we at 20, 30, 40? It's certainly wide open because at least 20%, so they could even go to 50%. And do we have a limit? Do we go anywhere at all with this? I don't know. Like when you give them $13,270, I don't have a problem with that. It does a lot of good things, but it would be nice to know, is that 20%, 40%, 50% of their operating costs? I have no idea.
I could get that figure for you, sir.
I think it'd be nice to know, at least they would say, you know, when sometimes those seniors will come to you and say, well, Alan, and I say, yeah, I know, but you're getting it, but where are we at? I have no idea.
Mhm. I can certainly make sure that you get an audited report.
Well, I think it'd be nice to see, just even, you know,
I think you're absolutely right. I think anyone that the municipality contributes to should get the financial reports. I can make sure at the end of June they come through, so I
Okay.
can make sure that you get them then.
reason I'm asking that because someone already gave me a package of containing the legislation saying that we got to contribute to them. So I have that in my briefcase. So I know that we have to give us,
Yes.
challenge me, and I said, well, I have it right here.
Yeah.
So I said, we have to do that. So,
If we do not do at least 20%, we will not get our funding.
okay.
That's the operating funds, I should say.
Yeah, and I, you know, I have no problem with it. I think it's a good thing that for people to do, and the only thing is nice to know where we're at. So,
Yes.
I just want to give you for information. Recently I read a communication from AMO or some outfit saying that the government is amending this legislation to allow other organizations to contribute the 20% because some municipalities are saying they're having difficulties
Mhm.
coming up with the 20%. So it is an issue there.
okay.
Many years ago, not too many years ago, they indicated it in the application, but I don't think they ever checked. But it states right now in the application in the last 2 years, make sure your numbers are correct when you apply for the operating grant. And of course, then it's an estimate because we will or can check. So I think they're becoming more provinces wanting to make sure that the contributions are going to the Rural 60 in kind or financially. Okay, so again, I have the resolution moved and seconded for the contribution of $13,270 in kind or via cash for the 23-24 Rural 60 Plus budget. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have a resolution in regards to the Keckbeck Falls Road Races. In 2024, I think it's gone on for about 3 or 4 years now. Is there any questions? This resolution's been moved and seconded. Councillor Viss?
Just one question, we need to have proof of liability insurance for those, what they're doing, because that covers, I think that's just a normal procedure, but make sure we get that.
Because we're on the road. Okay, again, any further questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have a resolution in regards to our insurance renewal. The insurance program will have a total premium of $301,240 plus $8,810 for the cyber insurance. Yes, Councillor Viss? We won't be insured. I don't think I want to be around if we're not insured. Any discussion? Yes.
So this is a little bit less than what we had budgeted, I see.
Yeah.
36 less, which is a good thing.
It's a 9.87% increase from last year. I think it is. So. Any further discussion? Resolution's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then the new resolution, which was the LRMC Fire Services meeting. The council attended it, and it's, I shall read it to you. Whereas the meeting with the LRMC was held on February the 20th, 2024 at the Roslyn Community Hall, all members of council be approved to attend. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None. It's been carried. Yes.
If I may, yeah, on the discussion part, I thought it was a good meeting. The only thing is where we at now, when we left, there was a whole lot of stuff was identified as problems and it was an eye opener when I heard some of them reports that there's miles and miles of road that they don't even cover, only in case of a terrible life involved. And that kind of stuff needs to go to the provincial government. They gotta give us more funding, and that meeting, too bad, but if that wasn't recorded, that could have been sent to them, because a lot of really, really good stuff came out. And then I gave it some thought, and I said, maybe in the next step, what they should do, and we know we have what everyone has in each fire hall, put it all together. You probably have to hire someone to collate that and say, okay, this is what he has and he doesn't have, this is what the charge would be per hour for this type of stuff and all that, and see where that goes. And when that goes to the province, and you get a municipality like Gillis that are so hard up, and if they ever had, they can't afford to phone anybody. They just can't. They don't have the money. And so the province needs the situation in Northern Ontario is different than anywhere else. And I don't know how to get onto, but I think we need, that was a first step, was a good thing. But we need to continue on, and we've got to put pressure on the province. Say, look, wait a minute, up in Northern Ontario, the areas that we cover and all that, we need to do something.
I just wanted to comment that I did discuss with the mayor, having a debriefing session. The council can talk about what happened at the meeting, and I myself, I did prepare notes, what I heard that we could bring forward that we can all look at right now. I have them circulated to the mayor and to the fire chief for comment. Yeah, we definitely don't want to just forget about what happened that evening. We need to follow up on it, and the fire chief is making contacts and so forth to keep the momentum going. That was just a start.
Yeah, and I think the fire chief will have some input. We'll certainly have some more input when it comes to debriefing of that meeting, because we didn't include the unincorporated areas in our meeting, but they are just as involved in this as our four municipalities that were at the meeting discussed. And the notes are also going to the LRMC meeting in March to further discuss. And we're also hoping that we can get a representative from the ministry at our LRMC meeting to let them know what happened at our meeting of council representatives and fire chiefs. This is just step number one. There's a long way to go. But all of those things you said will be part of that, what's happening in the future. Okay. We have the minutes of the DSAB meeting. We have the minutes of the health unit. Our bylaws. First one is a zoning amendment for 26 Haniac Road. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Disconnecting the work policy bylaw. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We then have our action items, which are we previously received, and the new items. And the first one is the Thunder Bay Veterinary Services Committee. They again asked for support for the $500 a year. Unfortunately, we have not received any financial records. And last year they did send them to us. So do we give them the $500 without the financial records, or do we defer it till the next meeting? The clerk was notified she would have them before this meeting, and they have not come. I'm not saying that we won't give it to them. I'm just saying that we always request their financial information or records report of the year, and we haven't received it yet. Should we
Where does that
defer?
leave us?
Pardon?
Where does that leave us?
Well, we can defer this till the next meeting. And then if we get their financial reports, I'm like I said, I'm not against them approving the funds, but we've always received the financial records beforehand. So we'll defer this. We'll defer till the next meeting.
We do have a counselor, is it Bernie, that sits on
Yeah.
there? Oh, shall see, if we see if he'll be able to say something, but that's okay, defer it to next.
Just
week.
defer till next meeting?
No
Okay,
problem.
we shall do that.
Just inform them, say we need a financial
Yeah.
statement, that's all.
Okay. The next item is a resolution in regards to the flashing light at the stop signs of highway construction zones. This was a resolution that Shunya had forwarded to us that they had sent to the Thunder Bay District Municipal League. And we do have a resolution that's been moved and seconded, I believe. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we also have a resolution in regards to provincial and national firefighting strategy. This was something that came to us from municipality of Calvin, urging and encouraging federal government to commit additional funds to cost sharing of provincial fighting and considering the development of a national strategy of firefighting. And so I had suggested the resolution be brought forward to us since I felt it was very important, and it has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And there was another resolution that came from the county of Renfrew in regards to advocating to the province of the government, federal governments of levels of government to make them aware that rural and small urban water and wastewater systems are financially unsustainable, and to advocate to AMA, Roma, and FCM to examine if the affordability of water and wastewater system operational cost is systemic provincially and nationally. Got through that one. So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We also received correspondence and a resolution from the town of Plainton, Wyoming, Prince Edward County, and Township of Central Frontenac regarding expanding the life of fire apparatus. Did not bring a resolution to us because we did not know if we had the authority or the ability to expand the life of fire apparatus. No? Okay, so this is there if you feel that you would like to support this resolution, but you can't, Councillor Viss.
Well, Mayor Lucia, it has a lot of value to it, we don't put a whole lot of miles on it. The only problem is expanding it is sometimes the manufacturer will quit making parts for your pump, and then, well, do what you want, unless you buy a whole new pump or something, otherwise and then you have to fit it in there, but the truck itself can last forever for all the miles of stuff. It's always stored inside. So it has some value to it that I think it's sometimes spend a lot of money when we don't maybe need to do that. But anyway, maybe the fire chief would like to talk to a bit of that about that.
Yeah, sure. So the life of the trucks basically comes from FUS. And it's based on data, basically looking at vehicles over time with the failure rates and things like that. So for the province, they'd have to come in and build a standard of their own to put in place. So FUS is an independent organization.
Can you tell us what FUS?
FUS is the fire laboratories underwriter survey.
Okay,
So that's the one that recommends replacement at certain periods of time based on population. And so,
and that would be through their statistics and whatever over the years.
so they're looking like, even though a truck's got low miles on it, they're looking at failure rates over time, take into account, like Councillor Viss said, parts availability, repairability, the amount of time that the vehicle is down, things like that.
No, I have no problem supporting that to see where it goes, even, I don't know if we'll go anywhere, but you know.
We can bring it back to the next meeting.
Yeah, certainly worthwhile, I think, you know, to bring it forward to the province and say, look, people, maybe you need to look at the larger community versus smaller communities. I don't know, I mean, I don't know where to go on the thing, but.
I just wanted to comment that Ontario, as the chief was talking about, they're not really in a position to create new standards because they follow those of these professional organizations and everything, but what they are asking for on 154, this resolution is that the provincial government get involved and see if they can persuade the FUS and other organizations to look at differentiating between the urban and the rural municipalities. That they do to some extent now because they have different standards according to the population size. The chief is probably more aware of it. Maybe understand some of the figures, but like a community of 5,000, whether you're urban or rural, between 5 and 10,000, you have the same standard. If you're going to adopt this type of approach, then you'd have to distinguish between rural and urban. Does rural mean you have X kilometers of square acreage or, you know, something like that? But yeah, passing this resolution, I don't think it's something we can't do, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing you pointed that out. I forgot to flip to that. All it's saying is asking them to take a look at it. Is there anything you can do for smaller municipality over large? So it may not go anywhere, but I think we should support that and see where it goes. I mean.
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got no problem with that. It's just if they're asking for involvement to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring it back to our next meeting. Okay. And then we have the updates of the Thunder Bay DSAB, the International Student Cap, Terrace Bay Pulp Mill, and the update from the Conservative Authorities Act and the Northern Ontario Women's Caucus, the Powers of One Voice in Politics. Is there any that you would like to discuss today? Councillor Viss?
Just a comment on the capping the students. There's a certainly advantage to bringing them in because it certainly helps the university stuff. And I noticed the city of Thunder Bay, as reluctant as they wanted, they supported because they're concerned about the housing, and that is a major problem. I wrote that down here. I'm all for it, but how do we handle the housing? Because these students have to live somewhere. And so, but just a comment. I don't say yes or no, but I think it's good to bring students in, but that's all, just a comment.
Okay. All righty, new business, Councillor Viss.
Yeah, I know, what happened to our generator? Is it gone? Oh, I didn't see it. It's on the trailer, right? What happened to the trailer?
I'm taking advantage of the vacant space at 144 Berry Drive.
Oh, okay. I thought, wait a minute, it disappeared. What happens if the hydro goes off? Because we got the new thing now, right? Okay. Wait a minute, that big box is missing. Okay,
Anything
that's
else?
all.
Okay, Councillor Calvert, any new business?
Well, since Donna's not here, she'd probably want to congratulate the Dubinsky curling team from Kakabeka. They ended up
Yes.
just missing out on the gold and they got the silver at the Ontario Games
Good.
and curling. And there's actually a couple other people that were from the municipality that played on the hockey team and they won the bronze in that division too. So I'm sure they done quite well.
Mhm. Yes. Oh, Sean?
Yeah, two things I'd like to bring up. We got a grant from the Fire Marshal's Public Safety Council for books. It's part of the certification grant thing. So we got just over $1,500 and I got the books ordered based on courses that we've got people enrolled in. And then yesterday we got a letter from Treasury Board and pleased to notify that your application has been selected for approval for the Community Emergency Preparedness Grant. So the grant that we put in for the wildfire fighting equipment, I put in for about 50,000. I don't know if we've got the whole amount yet. There's a letter that's supposed to follow up with
Yeah.
how much we got, but we've been selected for approval for that grant, so
Oh, that's wonderful.
good news on that.
Terrific. Okay. Anything else from administration for new business? Yes, John.
Just an update that the audit for 2023 is scheduled for the first week of April. So that's well earlier than last year, but
Yes.
so.
Good. Thought you were going to say September.
Yeah, it's starting in the first week of April. I can't guarantee you.
I can't tell it when it'll be finished. So nothing else from administration, new business? No? Okay. Have a resolution moved and seconded that we resolve to close session, the time being 9:50 a.m. Take a 5-minute break and go into closed session. Thank you. Sorry, we have a resolution moved and seconded to reconvene the council meeting at the hour of 10:11 a.m. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have the resolution moved and seconded to accept the minutes of the closed session meeting held on February the 13th as presented. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Do we have a resolution in regards to then the confirmation meeting? No, that's all? Confirming meeting?
We do have that.
That's it? Okay. So we have a resolution moved and seconded to confirm the meeting that took place today. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have a resolution moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting of February the 28th at 10:12 a.m. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much.
That was too easy. We're gonna pay for it next time. All kinds of stuff on that.